we have very poor awareness of our biology, right? We think that things just happen to, like, I'm just in a bad mood and I don't know why. Okay, but if you like unpack it a bit, you kind of do know why, but you have to be aware, you know? So you want to feel better, start raising some awareness, start journaling, start trying some things. Okay, I didn't like meditating like that, but I like going for a walk.
Karen Guggenheim, thank you so much for being on the Unquestionable podcast. It's lovely to see you again. I know we've met each other before, and I can't wait to talk to you again. I had a great time talking to you before. So for those who don't know much about you, may not have heard about you before, could you just tell us a little bit about you and your journey into this, into the world of happiness, and what you've been doing with happiness and gratitude and well-being in the last few years?
Sure. So since 2016, I've been dedicating my personal life, professional life, it feels sometimes like every moment of my life to promoting the science of happiness and well-being at scale, and the pro-social behaviors and practices that can increase to a happier, healthier, more sustainable life. And we do this through many different activities, but I think the one that we are most known for is the World Happiness Summit, which we just had our latest edition in March in London. We were very happy to be there. It's very successful. And what we do is that we gather the world's leading experts in the science and practice of happiness with a global audience. We look at the individual, the organization, education, and then policy and government. So we also launched our World Wellbeing Policy Forum at London School of Economics with Professor Lord Layard, and the World Wellbeing Movement. And so that is to try to get like a top-down approach. So we're trying to hit it at all angles possible, because we are dealing with increased loneliness, we are anxious, we have issues in our government, we are lacking leadership, we are largely dissatisfied, and we have so much. We've never had so much as a world, and yet we are dealing with these issues. So my journey in this field began actually with unhappiness and loss. In 2013, my husband passed away from the flu, and he died suddenly. And about 2 days after he died, I made the conscious decision to live for my children, and that if I was going to live, and I had decided I was going to do that, I would live happy. I didn't know anything about the science or anything like that. At that moment, I was a journalist and a communicator, etc. And so my journey was through purpose and meaning to happiness, and I accidentally became happy. And I chronicle that in my book, Cultivating Happiness. And when I found out that there was a science and a method and frameworks and something you could do with this definition of happiness as an umbrella concept, not just positive emotion, I wanted to let as many people know as possible that this was a resource for them. It's not easy, but it is available.
So could you start by maybe giving us your definition of what happiness is? Because I know that, some people will be thinking, oh, well, it's just sort of, you just fake it, or you just put a smile on your face, even if you're not feeling great, or you just mask all the negative emotions. But from my understanding, that's not what you're promoting, right? Well, how would you describe happiness?
Absolutely. And, happiness is an interesting word, right? I can tell you how we talk about it, right? So we look at it as subjective well-being, which is like what the academia looks at, and that it has a cognitive component and then an emotional component. So the emotional component is what we all kind of, we love it, right? It's that joy, that feeling of feeling good, that positive emotion. But human beings are not made to have one emotion all the time, be it positive or negative. They're data points, so they're going to come and go, and it's healthy and normal for humans to have that, right? And so the very first step for my personal journey, it was to go through the pain. You're not going to get to mental health and emotional well-being if you don't feel your feelings. So that's really important. Now, the key is, how do we not become hopeless? How do we not, maybe fester the wound, or, what behaviors do we, can we engage in, which are within our control? So that's where the cognitive component comes into play. And by the way, it's great if you work on it before life happens, because then it's a little bit stronger. So that resiliency muscle, that grit, if you work at it, then when life happens, not that it's not going to hurt or be disappointing or be shocking or any of these things, it will be, but you'll be able to bounce up back a little bit faster and maybe not go as deeper if you have a framework. And so that framework, we look at the elements of well-being, which are, connecting with purpose, so both personal and professional purpose, looking at your financial health and also at your career. We spend a lot of time at work, so it's important to look at that. And we use the word career because ideally it feels like a career as opposed to just a job, so that it's not just functional and transactional. That's really important. Purpose ties into that, as do people. So there's the other component is social. It's very important to work on your relationships, both at work and in your personal life. And so you can do something about that. Also, engaging in your community. So taking care of the environment, but also how is your community health of where you live, your family, and your workplace. Mindfulness. So again, to be truly happy, you have to be present, so that you're not in the past or in the future. That's really, really important. Your physical health is important too. So there are three primary areas that we look at, which is rest, whether it's, long-term, medium-term, or short-term rest or recovery periods, which are really important, and the quality of your sleep. Also nutrition and food, and movement, exercise, but also moving in your daily life. And I think we see that from like the Blue Zone research, that, these people that live a long time have a lot of these components as well. And movement is one of them, where it's not like organized, maybe exercise. And I think I hit the 6. I'm a little jet lagged from all the travel in the last 2 weeks, but I think I got them.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, there's a lot that you can do. Like research shows that genetics influences you like 50%, somewhere around there. Life circumstances is a chunk. And then there's like another bit that is where we work in, that I dedicate my life in. There's like, okay, and there's this bit that you can do something about. And that bit is really significant.
Yeah, and arguably when it comes to life circumstances, I guess you're talking about, stuff that we can't control, like the death of a loved one, for example, or, illness and stuff like that. I'm sure there'll be people listening that are thinking like, oh, well, 50% is such a huge chunk of like what influences your happiness, right? But if you're controlling the things that you can control, like, the exercise and the sleep and the food and the social elements and mindfulness and stuff, do you see it often impacting that genetic side of happiness as well? Or can it be moved around a little bit?
Well, because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, you can make new neural connections. So of course you can build, you can learn optimism, you can learn hope behavior, you can learn a growth mindset. You can decide if you're going to be a victim in your life or if you're not. What narrative are you going to have? I think you're a storyteller, guys, if I'm not mistaken.
I am, yeah.
So the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and who we are to ourselves, I mean, that's the most important protagonist in your life. And you get to make that decision. So I think people largely are feeling disconnected with each other and with themselves, and so we kind of forget that really if you want to be happier, got to go inside. And it sounds like so cliche, but it's really it's scary and wonderful at the same time, right? Because there's so much you control. And then, how easy would it be that it's just if you make more money, lose weight, or and get invited to some event or party or get a promotion? We know from biology that we have an adaptability bias. So you will always adapt. You adapt to bad things and you adapt to good things. So it's fleeting. So that's why we get this notion of happiness as fleeting. Yes, one thing is that, by the way, most emotions are fleeting because it's something, it's a feeling. That's it. You're feeling it's now, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm not talking about mental illness. I'm not talking about that. And you know, people that are suffering from that need healthcare and may need medicine and need different tools and different things to do that. I'm talking about our everyday angst. And then also when things, you know, when they do happen, like in my case, when my husband died, right? I had a decision to make. Like I could cry every single moment of my life and blame the doctors who made mistakes and do everything else, right? And that will not bring him back. And not only that, I destroy from that point forward. Like that was very clear to me. And so not only did I not want that because of the ramifications for my children, but even as important, he's dead. He can't do anything about it. I can do something about his legacy, and I will do something about his legacy. You know, first it was the pain, and it's just so disorienting. There's pain, and then there's like a huge amount of shock because your identity's gone. Like you're no longer a wife immediately. Not that you were planning, or you know, let's see if we have a travel separation. It's like gone, and then you're like, okay, my mirror is gone. Right? My future is gone. All these stories you have in your head and all these different things. And so I was very adamant that, you know, my husband was amazing. He was wonderful. And he loved me very much and accepted me. And I wanted that to be alive. And if I was depressed and if I felt sorry for myself, my children would crash. And also, I felt like it was incredibly unfair to him that he died young and then everything afterwards is crap.
God, wow. You're such a strong woman, Karen, such an inspiration as well, because I'm sure there'll be people listening that are kind of going through something at the moment. You know, tragedies happen fairly regularly, unfortunately, on a global scale. So first of all, just well done on being such an incredible, inspiring woman.
I appreciate that a lot, and I accept it. I also want to say that, remember, it could be a divorce, it could be people losing their jobs. It's identity, right? It's like what you attach yourself. It's like the sense of belonging, all these different things that happen. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a death. And there's no judgment, like, you know, oh, well, I get a lot of like, well, my thing is not as bad as yours. So who cares about mine and where mine is in relationship to yours? You know, like, if this bit helps you, do it, and I can learn from you as well. And that's why I love this, because I'm constantly learning, you know, and adapting. And this is the way they're saying it this way and that way. And wouldn't this be a cool speaker? And so for the summit, that's so important because like it's alive. It's like this tapestry that I'm so privileged in putting together. And then the speakers, or whether we had a DJ this year, so the music and that, but the DJ was also a mental health expert. And so it gives you an insight on your mind and your brain and what's happening. And then you get to hear music. And so how can we hack, you know, the way that we feel? So music is a great hack. Movement is a great hack. Hugging, you know, not watching the news last thing you do in the night or early in the morning, because your brain's susceptible. So what I've found is that, you know, we have very poor awareness of our biology, right? We think that things just happen to, like, I'm just in a bad mood and I don't know why. Okay, but if you like unpack it a bit, you kind of do know why, but you have to be aware, you know? So you want to feel better, start raising some awareness, start journaling, start trying some things. Okay, I didn't like meditating like that, but I like going for a walk. I sleep better if I don't see my phone at night. So for example, I don't see my phone after 9 p.m. I don't want to know emails. I don't want to know texts. I don't want to know anything. If somebody needs me, they'll call me. And also the very first thing in the morning, I don't do that. So like I read inspirational or spiritual books that I like, that resonate with me. You have your own. I journal a bit. I have a nice warm cup of coffee. Other people have tea, water, whatever. The point being that your brain is susceptible at night and in the first thing in the morning. So what are you feeding it? You know, like you're giving the marching orders to your brain. And so what is it going to be? Like TikTok, a potentially like bad text, or do you want to like center yourself? And what I say is that we all have to-do lists, but how about a to-be list? So, and you get to control that. Today I want to be kind. Today I want to be forgiving. Today I want to be empathetic. Today I want to be joyful. Today I want to explore this. Today, you know, I want to be positive. So you can look for that. And the experts say that, which makes perfect sense, but I love that there's science and research around it, that what you pay attention to appreciates. So if you appreciate the good, you're going to think there's more good in your life, because there's a lot, but we tend to look at what's going wrong, and that's because our negativity bias. So there are challenges that we may need to address, but if we zoom out, again, to your film work, if you zoom out, oh, there's a lake there. All of a sudden, you know, you were like here, but if you look to the right, there's like, okay, the totality of my life is not so bad. You know, there's this thing that I need to address, which sucks, but like all this other stuff is kind of amazing, especially if we compare down, because we only compare up, right?
Yeah.
So true. I was going to say, like, obviously talking to you here and like listening to you and sort of like, it's sort of clarifying it in my head that, you know, we put so much onus on external things for happiness. Like happiness is an external thing. Where actually, obviously what you're saying is, it is far more an internal process. Like we need to be happy within ourselves. There's that whole thing about like, you won't find love unless you love yourself. All those kind of things, you know, those things are so true. Just moving on from that slightly, like I assume like happiness is different for everybody in some ways.
Yes.
There are some,
Yes.
you know, so how does it work for you when we're obviously promoting happiness to different cultures and different people, and obviously like as individuals our happiness is different. How do we, is there a sort of, I know, and obviously you've mentioned a few hacks and stuff that we can try, but from a general point of view, how do we promote happiness to a vast, you know, landscape of different feelings and emotions and people?
So first, it is subjective, which is wonderful, because it's like your favorite color. So there's no judgment, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, right? That's important, that you don't cause misery upon others. That's toxic. So that's very important. And the other bit to the reason why it's inside you, because you have to experience it. So I can tell you about this amazing meal, right? And conceptually, you could understand it, you could describe it, but then to actually know what it tastes like, you have to eat it. And that's like what I mean by the internal process. That way you actually feel it, you own it. You're like, oh, that's happiness. And that's what we see a lot with the people coming to the summit, that they're like, oh, and that's like incredible feeling. The other stuff, even when you get the pretty things, it like pales in comparison to when you're like, well, that's what these experts are talking about, or what these people are talking about. And the other part, before I answer the cultural context question, is that largely we see, you know, to the criticism that it's selfish. We see the people that come to the summit, they all want to help other people and tell them about it. And that was my reaction. My reaction is, how can I tell other people that they can access this too? Because we have an altruism loop. We're actually hardwired to feel good when we do good for other people. So it's selfish, and that, yeah, it feels good to you, but it's also selfless, that you want to help other people and you want to spread it. And so with the cultural component, yeah, I guess we have a little bit more of a, I don't know if you would say American, or maybe because I'm also Latin. So we're expressive with our happiness. And I also think that that it's good to express it. I think we see that even in, like, you know, if you think about like the group dancing or chanting or all these things that are, like, you know, generational in different cultures. I think that that expressing your feelings is important, especially your joyful feelings. So, for example, if you open your arms and you say, I'm happy, or if you say I'm depressed, it feels weird. And then if you go like this and you say I'm happy, just the body emotion of it feels different. And then yes, different cultures have different ways, I think, that they communicate happiness also, for contentment or more satisfaction or more on the individual versus the collective. But we're very much about promoting individual and collective happiness because, it's very hard for an individual to be happy without the collective being well. And the collective is made up of individuals. So those are so important, and also taking into account the environmental health. What is fascinating to me is that, we focus on the environment, but we, for some reason, don't realize that like the ones making the decisions on the environment are people. So if people aren't well, they're not going to make good decisions about the environment. So I don't understand how we can separate people and environment. That's something that really something I don't understand. Like I've been in places where it's like, I'm talking about happiness, like, but what about the environment? It's like, of course, the environment. But if we think about it, when you are at your best, you make better decisions. And these are really complicated decisions that we're dealing from the environment, from politics, from, cohabiting with people, wars, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel that if we teach children these pro-social behaviors, if we teach children how their brains operate, if we say, okay, this is what social media does, this is your attention, this is what happens, and give them this awareness, right? But not once a week or once a month. It's like part of your education is like, let's take care of your body. This is what the biology is happening. These are your hormones. And then we equip them with knowledge in the same way that we equip them with knowledge for science and math and, languages, but we don't equip them with self-knowledge. And then we wonder why they're addicted to their phones and social media when it's a product that's created to addict them. Yeah. And adults too, by the way. Yeah. So it's fascinating to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, okay, so we've talked a little bit about the individual and the collective. Going back to the individual, so if there's someone listening, for example, who's going through a period of grief or even just apathetic and just bored with life and lacking, joy and inspiration, where is a good place to start? We talked about those 6 elements. Are there any tangible steps that one can take to kind of shift their state of happiness?
There are many, and I also want to share that I feel like that time to time. I feel like that, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I go on what's worked before. So it's fair to say that if you've spent time in working on this, it's going to be easier for you. The same thing that we understand this in our physical body, right? We understand that if I don't do any exercise and I walk a mile, I'm going to be out of breath. But we don't get that from, like, why am I feeling apathetic? Because you've done absolutely nothing to feel otherwise. And life is hard.
Yeah.
So life got a lot easier when I realized life is hard. Yeah. It's the way it's done. Yeah. Sometimes it's better. It's easier than other times, but it's hard. People, relationships and like, oh my God, we're living in a world that's moving so fast. You can't catch up. Right. And so I, do what resonates with you. There's so much out there. I mean, if you want to listen to talks, they're for free on our YouTube channel. You can go there. I have tips in my books. There's other authors that have tips. You can go on the internet, but I can just say that begin to track how you feel, right? So don't look at your phone at night and in the morning, and track that for like a week or so and see if you sleep better. Keep a journal. Like, nope, didn't work for me. Yes, it worked for me. It's going to be hard if you're used to it. It's going to be hard in the beginning because it's a habit, like biting your nails. So it's going to just know it's going to be hard. And this is really important, right? So what if it's difficult? Do it. Do it. Build some of that resilience. Make a commitment. This is difficult, but I'm committed to doing it. The other thing, for example, being in nature, just seeing nature, just looking at it improves your well-being. So you don't even have to do anything except put yourself in front of nature. So you can just go walk outside and look at a tree and then see how you feel, but do it over time. Seeing a tree one time is not going to do the thing. You have to create a habit. So make a commitment. I want to see how I'm going to feel over the next 4 weeks when I, don't look at my phone, get a traditional clock, because, we are very good at this. I need it because I need an alarm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's something called an alarm clock, my friends. And there's something called a phone call. Okay, that you can put, that can break through the whatever, and you can hear it. So, because we make these excuses, right? And see how you feel, maybe listening to music in the morning, and not wait to listen to music, not wait till you want to go outside. That's something that's really important. You're feeling down, call a friend and offer help. Like, instead of you like, why haven't people called me and blah, 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 call somebody and say, hey, can I drop you off at the train station or whatever, or you want to see a movie or you want to whatever. That creates a sense of agency. And when you may feel like you have no agency, when you feel like, especially you're bored, you're this, you're all these things, right? But this is proactive behavior. But we wait. Oh, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing that. Let me tell you. If I would just do what I feel like doing, it would be a problem.
Mm. It's so true. So true. Yeah. And in terms of, we talked a lot about society as well, and how important it is not to feel lonely. And I think loneliness is such a huge problem nowadays, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll probably be able to speak a lot more about this than me, but it seems like it's kind of like an epidemic of loneliness. And we know that it causes diseases and shortens lifespan and stuff like that. How, as a collective, how can we develop more of a community for everyone?
So absolutely is not like a pandemic. It is a pandemic, first of all. Second of all, so I was in a conference last week in Lugano, and I was speaking there, and one of the scientists was actually a researcher on loneliness. She did the research that the Surgeon General of the United States loneliness bulletin, which is great, by the way. You should all read it. Anybody listening to this, read it. It's got data. It's got recommendations. It's not long. So instead of like spending an hour and a half on social media, just read that. Yeah. If you want to. And what was so significant was that she equated it. She said, if you knew there was a pill that extended your life significantly, that cut down dementia, that decreased possibilities of like obesity, diabetes, except there were like, at least she said like 15 things, you would be buying that pill or getting your doctor to prescribe that pill. And that's social connection. That's increased social connection. But that's not, that's not likes and social media stuff. So what happens is that since we all have, only 24 hours in a day, and if we're working long hours, etc., or if we're feeling anxious or we're feeling overwhelmed, it's so easy to get lost in either, Netflix or in the social media, because you don't have to think. Mm-hmm. But the danger of not feeling is that, yes, you may block out for a period of time your challenging emotions, but since you have one emotional channel, you're also not going to feel positive emotions. You're just going to be numb. And so the key here is, for loneliness, is to invest in your relationships and invest in the discomfort that takes into developing those relationships in a deeper way. So, for example, also looking at the work of Arthur Brooks, who spoke at the summit, and he'll be speaking again in March. We're going to have the summit in Miami in 2025. And he talks about deal friends and real friends. So we have a bunch of friends from work or et cetera that it's not like a tit for tat, but that it's a little bit transactional. And then we need friends that they're not going to provide anything except joy or except love or except laughter or support. And what happens is that many times those are the friends that we don't invest time in because A, we may think they're always there, or B, we need to accomplish something because we're going to be productive. So we don't have the time, we don't make the time to carve into those relationships. So if you want to be less lonely and experience less, isolation, then put yourself out there. And it's okay to be silly or do not get it right the first time, or you said something that was somebody didn't like. There's a friend of mine that I love, and she says, you know what? You are not a gold coin that everybody's going to love. So some people are not going to get you. They're not going to get your humor, or they just won't like you or whatever. It's okay. There's like a lot of other people. So keep going. But the danger is that with the phone, I mean, do you guys remember calling someone? It would be okay to just call someone. Now it's like, can I call you next Friday? Right?
And you're like, why? What?
Right?
Suspicious of why would you do
you
that?
get a call and you're like, what?
Yeah,
What's
it's an
going
emergency.
on?
Yeah.
What's going on? And so, we've kind of lost this spontaneity of communicating. And for effective relationships, we need to communicate. And one of the things that was remarkable, the Surgeon General said that he did a tour in the United States of college campuses, okay? And in all the universities he went like to 10 or 15 universities. He went to the student union where all the students are there, not necessarily studying, but where they gather. And he stepped in and it was so quiet. It was full of kids. It was so quiet because everybody was on their phone.
Wow.
And then he had a fireside chat with them, whatever, and he asked them why. And they said that they felt uncomfortable engaging in a conversation. So they felt more comfortable texting or that because, and two things that I found remarkable there. One is that that's the case. And then number two, that imagine the resilience or lack thereof if we can't deal with the discomfort of, well, I'm doing my homework, I can't talk to you right now. And then it's not soul crushing to the person saying, can I sit here and can we talk about whatever?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I really worry about future generations because when you were talking about speaking on the phone, when was the last time that was like normal? I was thinking, God, when I was a teenager, that was the last time that people used to phone me up.
Well, also, I feel like when the phone goes, you get a bit nervous.
right.
Yeah.
I do I don't know what, I know
It has to be an emergency.
What happened?
Well,
Yeah.
the only time you've ever phoned me is when there was an emergency. But I remember I used to spend all day at school with my friends, face-to-face contact, and then I'd get home, and then almost as soon as I get through the door, my friend that I've just spent all day with phones me up, and we're chatting, or I'd go around their house, and it's like constant face-to-face contact. And I think future generations just aren't going to have that. That's so scary.
They're not having it. It's not that they're not going to, they are not having it. And remember, again, we are biological creatures who are social animals, by the way. And, like what we're doing right now, it's not to the body, it's not really real. So where maybe I can cognitively say, okay, we're interacting, your body's saying, but it's not really real. It's just so off. It's so like minusculely off that it doesn't feel right. And so you're having these messages also, that when you're texting, when you're doing these things, you're not having that nourishment that you get biologically to your body. That is the most amazing thing about social connections. The eyes, the glimmer, the smell. Okay. Even for, I think people aren't, I saw somewhere people aren't having sex globally. Like they're not. That's a bit of a problem if you think about it long term.
Because there's too because there's too much.
I mean, in this moment, what?
Because there's too much porn. Like, is that the future generation as well?
There's porn. It's complex, so you have to deal with people's emotions. There's breakups. There's finding. There's like the same reason where we're not investing in relationships. It's messy.
Well, that is not something I imagined would fall off. That surprised me.
Exactly, that has fallen off.
That is crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, in this country, in America, they're the Surgeon General he's so into this bit and also the social media. He wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times last week, and he was calling for guidelines on social media use. And it's interesting to me because we talk about well, technology can be good. I mean, like, hello, obviously. Like, is that even, like, no, I'm not going to talk about that. That's like so silly that I'm not even going to talk about that. Now, having said that, we have to notice that there's a problem.
Yeah.
I had an interview yesterday, and I had this metric, which was frightening. 1 in 3 young girls has contemplated suicide in the United States. That's a lot. 1 in 3.
1 in 3.
It's terrifying.
1 in 3. So I'm thinking maybe we should act now, you know, like, and then the young boys also have the issue because they also tend to be more successful in that because of the ways that they do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a product that is marketed for you to be using it a lot. And our kids around the world, because again, I was speaking in Europe and they had the same concern. What about social media? And what I think, you know, there's a lot of research and some of it is saying, well, it's not so detrimental. Then you also have to follow like who's doing the research and who's paying for the research. That I don't know, but it would be helpful to know. And then all of us who are parents, we know there's an issue, right? Like we've seen it. So it's like we have all of this evidence and yet we're not acting. And I don't know what the right solution is, but I do know that we need to bring education, like I was mentioning, well-being education in the same importance as if they're learning another language or they're learning math. I mean, my God, who uses trigonometry unless you're going to be like an architect or something? I haven't.
Yeah.
I have never used it. Okay. So, I mean, great. I know what a triangle is. Amazing. You know, but it's not very useful. And I just think that this information from a very young age, even how to communicate, eye contact, they don't know how to make eye contact. Okay. They feel uncomfortable. So these things that we all think are intuitive, that they're not getting the message because we're doing a poor job in protecting their developing brains. No?
Well, like you say, I mean, obviously for teenagers, their brains are developing, and it's the irony, isn't it, that it's called social media when it's actually kind of like
anti-social media. That's a good point. It's like anti-social media.
Yeah.
But it's so clever. It's so clever. Social media. Of course you want to socialize.
Yeah.
You know,
it's crazy. And yeah, I know you touched earlier a little bit on like the blue zones. And for those people listening that don't know, I believe that it's the places throughout the world with the most this is the word I always struggle to pronounce.
Centenarians.
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 That word,
I know what yours. Yes, the people over 100. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
People that
So
reach
it's
100.
like Sardinia. There's a place in Greece, Japan, Costa Rica, Loma Linda in California. It's just like 7 or 8.
Oh, really? There's one in California. I didn't know that.
Yes, Loma Linda. Yes.
So from what I've gathered, I've read like a couple of books about other stuff that touch on it, but it's a lot of this sort of almost like lifestyles that kind of go back in time. You know, you're like living off the land and living multiple generations within the same house, or if not, then at least the same neighborhood. And, you know, you have that social aspect. You know, you're seeing people every day, all the time. You have your tribe. You're doing lots of walking. You know, I know in the mountains of Greece, for example, they're like climbing lots of hills with their sheep.
Lovely Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, organic, homegrown food. It's just, the list goes on and on. But I remember reading this list of the ways that they were living, and I was like, nothing really shocked me. I was kind of like, well, duh, like, of course, you just take out all of the toxic stuff, and then you're left with this like healthy lifestyle. And it's crazy that all of this stuff, like with social media and the phone, going on your phone and watching the news and like all the stuff that kind of innately makes us feel bad, it's all really common sense, but it's so hard to strip away once you get addicted, right? Do you feel like we're kind of addicted to being unhappy in some ways?
I think that we are, so I'll say things. First, I'll say this. I think that we're having a little bit of an issue with like responsibility and conviction and commitment. Like, oh, okay, this is all happening, but I choose, this is what I'm going to do, or this is, like just in general, we're very, it's funny because we have like these opinions on things that like so don't matter.
Yeah.
And then we are like, well, I don't know. I have, I know friends, we're going to get divorced. My kids are, consuming social media 12, 15 hours a day. But yeah, I have opinions about this other thing. And it's like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I don't think that we're addicted to unhappiness, but remember, unhappiness sells, right? So that's why the news are negative, because we have a bias towards the negative. We don't need happiness for survival. So nice to have, and we flourish and we live longer, we live better, and we have everything else better. We make more money. Like kids who are happier, they have better, they get more promotions, they make more money, etc. later in life. It's a bigger predictor than anything else of their success. But we are dealing with entities that want to sell stuff to us. So they have created algorithms and use psychology and use all of these marketing tools, and we are addicted to that hit. Oh, we're going there. And so instead of like, wait, do I really want to, I kind of love going there because I don't have to think about all the things that are happening in my life, but it's cotton candy. And if I eat, and it's okay time to time, but if I eat cotton candy 3 times a day, for weeks, you're maybe going to have a cavity. Maybe you're going to have diabetes, right? And so, but the thing is that cotton candy is hitting that point in your brain that is where addiction, don't they? The research shows, I think, that the center that in your brain that addicts you to social media is like where you get addicted to crack.
Oh, really? Wow.
So we're telling kids, like, just do a little bit of crack. Just like, heck for good, do a little bit of crack, and then you're going to be fine. And it's like the brain is going, give me more. And the same thing with news. It's like nobody's going to call somebody like, oh, this puppy was found in the forest, or like, very few times do we say this leader was amazing. And that's the other thing, that we like to build up and then we would like to tear down, right? Nothing is better in the media than like, this person's amazing, this company's amazing, and then because it's amazing, it's going to be so newsworthy when we just tear it apart.
What's that German
and we're
word
gonna
for
watch
that? Is it German?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Schadenfreude. So, and we're all like first row seats into, did you see that happen? And so I think that's important. And then talking about the blue zones, I think with the points that you made are very valid. We also have to look at how to take some of those principles, and this is the work that we do. How do we take some of those principles and put it like in modern life and in cities, and maybe, where you don't have a goat to chase.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that one of the things that has helped me, and I think it's really important, and Jen Fisher talks about this, is about slowing down. And I think that part of the success of these societies that we're talking about are slowing down, because if not, we're in constant cortisol. You're late. And we tell that, like, the kids, okay, let's go. We're late. Let's go. We're late. You're late. And the whole time you're like freaking out. So, maybe we start saying like, okay, take your time. Okay, take your time. Do you think you should have that? Take your time. We're going to, I think that's something that we're not good about. So multitasking as well. The brain doesn't multitask. Like, it doesn't do that. So you can try to do that, but it's actually not going to do that. You're just going to decrease your performance. And probably increase your anxiety, and so I think that that's important. And I think that then that ties into how we define success and how we define work, right? So maybe it can't be that you're going to be producing these things that your company wants you to produce at the scale and speed that they want you to produce it, right? So I think that we need kind of a shift there. And we keep jamming these things into like employees, for example, and that's where you see such a big problem with burnout.
Right.
You cannot do more. Like you cannot do more. You can, those environments can continue for a period of time, but I think that we're going to see a lot of these companies that think that they're doing well and leadership thinks that they're doing well, is that you're going to end up finding that you have bodies there, right? But that your competitive advantage has either burned out or left. And so I don't think that these old fashioned companies, who think that they're performing well, are going to continue to perform well long term because of the human sustainability.
Becoming a false economy for them. Karen, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time as ever. I wonder if we could just finish. You talked at the beginning about some of your routine that you put in place. It might be helpful for some people listening, and for you and I actually, Sophie. Maybe just tell us a few things that you do on a daily basis, like when you get, you talked about getting up in the morning and stuff. Are there some little things that you talked about, like different hacks that we can be using ourselves? But yeah, just sort of talk us a little bit through your own process.
So I think that most people have a book or an author or something that they enjoy, right? And if you don't, you might want to invest in that and get a few, see which one you like. Now, I like paper, and I highlight and I take notes on my notes and I reread because I find that my attention goes. I'll read a book and I'm like, oh, I never knew they said that. And it's highlighted. So clearly I was there, right? And I'm like, oh, that's really cool, right? And so, and you don't have to do it for a long period of time. That's the thing that I just want to say. Like, these are not like, I have to exercise for an hour and a half now. No, like I do literally like an exercise, like a stretching that it's probably like 6 minutes. Okay. I just do it every day. And so I read that, I reconnect with myself. And what you find now is that in these moments where you're feeling a little bit of serenity or peace, then you get like really great ideas for work, or really great ideas for a friend, or really great ideas for this, right? It's almost like, when you're in the shower and you're like, oh, great one, because you've allowed your brain to take a moment, to take a beat. And so I think that you will find that after you do that in the morning, you're going to realize how creative, because happier people are like 10 times more creative. So you're going to see the creativity coming into play. And the phone, my God, don't look at the phone after that. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I also listen to music when I'm in the shower.
You sing as well?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But you should. I dance.
Yeah.
The first year after my husband died, every day I listened to Bob Marley and Pearl Jam. So that was every day. And I just got back from Las Vegas. I went to see Pearl Jam.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorite bands.
So have fun. That's the other thing. Have fun.
Yeah.
Like, have fun in your day. Like, it's wonderful to have fun. And don't wait till things are like perfect. And this is where I say, don't wait to be happy to be happy. Like, go get it and understand that, things are going to fall apart. Things are going to be disappointing. See what works for you. I also go out and walk. And that's amazing. Even if it's a short walk, just being outside and we need to reframe this idea of no pain, no gain. You're going to have a lot of gain with absolutely no pain. It just requires an investment and a commitment of time to do it. And work on your relationships. Say sorry. Forgive people. I cannot underestimate the power of forgiveness. And if you don't know how to do that or the value of that, you need to go on our YouTube channel and see Fred Luskin at this year's summit, and it's going to blow your brain. Okay? There are a few things that you can do in your life that will create more fertile ground to happiness than forgiveness. And let's be clear, you forgive for yourself. You don't forgive for other people. Doesn't make their behavior okay. You never have to tell them to their face. You never have to talk to them again. Boundaries are incredibly important. But it is such a powerful, powerful catalyst
Mm.
for happiness. And I also want to say that I hope you guys, all of you listening, and you too, come to Miami in March to the
We'd
World
love to.
Happiness Summit.
Yes.
And you could look at more information on worldhappinesssummit.com. We're very excited. It's going to be great. It's in South Beach. So, yeah, we're going to have fun.
We should go.
We're going to bring
That sounds
science
amazing.
and
Yeah.
fun. Yes.
And there's lovely weather as well. So
March will be lovely weather. I promise that. Right now
Yeah.
it's hot, but in March, Miami is at its best.
amazing. Wow, Karen, you've given us so many amazing tools. And even just listening to you then, I was like making mental notes of all the the YouTube videos I want to go and watch now.
I've made loads of notes.
Yeah, I thought Giles like scribbling
You
them
got to
down.
see
so-
Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Fred and let me know. It's amazing. I mean, he's amazing. He's like Aristotle, Plato.
Mm.
I don't know. He's just really cool.
Yeah, when you were talking about forgiveness, I was thinking, God, there's probably lots of people that I need to forgive that I'm not even aware that I'm holding any resentment towards, or stuff from childhood, or even
Uh-huh.
forgiving yourself. I think that's so
100%.
so important. I could talk for a while about forgiveness, actually. We should do a whole nother episode on that. But yeah, it's so interesting. And again, what you were talking about with your exercise, if you're just doing something for 6 minutes every day, it's so much more sustainable than if you say, all right, I'm going to exercise for an hour and a half every day. I bet people within 2 or 3 days will be like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I can't be
course.
bothered.
Get little weights
Mm.
and do weights with your arms. Like literally, I do. I think it must be 3 minutes.
Right.
But
Mm.
guess what? I build muscle.
Yeah, it compounds, doesn't it? And then
Exactly.
eventually it
Exactly.
helps. Yeah,
And
it's
it's,
amazing.
and it's just thinking these are these very, very simple things that we can put into our daily practices and make a significant change to our
Listen, all of the happiness practices are simple, all of them, and they're common sense.
Mm.
They're just difficult to do consistently
Yeah,
because
exactly.
of the mindset. But when you start seeing, for example, you mentioned forgiveness, go see how you feel when you start doing a little journal. It's like, okay, I'm going to forgive this person. But you never have to see them again. You never have to condone their behavior. And yourself, of course, very important to forgive yourself. And that's tied to self-compassion and self-love. That's self-care. When we talk self-care, like the spa, whatever, the spa's fun, but true self-care is self-forgiveness, talking to yourself like if you were a friend. You don't do that, right?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
God, yeah, it's so fascinating. There's just so many elements to it. And just to go back to what you said at the beginning as well, it's, practicing all of these things, it's like building a muscle, right? So that when the shit hits the fan, if something terrible really does happen, it's easier to sort of utilize all of the, the things in the toolkit that you've learned. And to
Absolutely. And if something small happens, then you can go, well, that was disappointing, but I don't need to spoil the rest of my day because my day was large, because we love that too.
Mm.
Oh, this spoiled my day. I was having such a great day. Now it's gone. Why? Right?
And ruminating. Yeah.
That's
so true.
also biological. So
Yeah.
you have to get the hacks. You have to train yourself if you want to not ruminate.
Yeah.
For
I'm
me,
a big
ruminating
ruminator.
is one of the worst feelings ever.
Yeah, we both
And I'm so
ruminate,
good
don't we?
at it. I'm
Yeah.
so good at it.
Yeah.
So good at it.
Oh, trust
I've
me.
got a son that does it a lot as well.
Yeah.
It's
It's a real thing because I would consider
well, they
myself to be
pick it
quite
up
happy
from
about-
us, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, the
Yeah, I
children
was
pick it
gonna
up
say.
from us. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen, it was
Yeah,
so lovely
thank you
to
so
talk
much.
to you. You're so
Absolutely.
wise and so inspiring. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on and chatting about
Yeah.
happiness.